Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome to another fascinating edition of the program ASHFORD GARLEY Live on Bridge Radio Africa. We're coming your way from Lansdowne, PA. And as always, folks, in the book of Psalm 139:14, I will praise thee, for I am wonderfully and fearfully made. Marvelous and thy works, and that my soul knoweth thou right well. In other words, folks, from the wise man, if you don't know who you are, the devil will rob you of opportunities. Some call him the mastermind, the doctor of love, the medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of radio. Just to buy a gift, Zebon Rodan, and Jacob, no, Jiraji. Boru Bly, Paddy, call your Boru say, Groba, quick on your secret. Baby, Akuya, a web play. Second, we are a pelia. Bassi Yompu. He doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. The giant. Africa's media do extraordinary. I'm ASHFORD GARLEY. Welcome to the show. And folks, I am pissed tonight. Do we love Liberia? Or we are just in this for ourselves? Do we really love Liberia? Or we are in this for ourselves? Leave my country alone. You stole the elections in 2005. You stole the elections again in 2012. You had your second term. Now you are at the end of your third term. You want to continue by imposing on us your fourth term. Please leave our country alone. You said that you no longer play an active role in Liberian politics. Why are you still involved? Liberians, help me to ask this very evil and wicked Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and her fake son to leave our country alone. Now you are calling your son to talk to other political actors because your hate for Joseph Boyka is too strong. You said Boyka will never become president as long as you are still living. And Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is afraid of three people. One is dead. Charles Walker Bronsky, may his soul rest in peace. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is also afraid of Vanny Sherman. Not that I care about Vanny Sherman, he's also corrupt. And she's also afraid of Joseph Human Boyka. So Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is on her way now, working hard to do everything so that Boyka doesn't succeed in becoming president. So folks, what is she doing? She's calling Yombly Kanga. She's calling Darius Dillon. Darius Dillon, who also had a very close relationship with her son, Robert Sirleaf, because Darius is too polite. And as a man, you can't be too polite. Because the right tongue is not meant for penetration. Women were made to receive, and men gave. But as a man, if you turn around to your friend man, you lose your manhood. Because when he's in a room where you can't say anything, and most of the men in Liberia, those who are looking for power and money, they allow themselves to be tampered with, to be molested by other men, just to be in power, just to get close to power and just to get some money. Because they don't have work ethic, they can't get up and go to work, so they look for the easier way out. Why will a man allow his friend man to tamper with him? This is demonic. This is ungodly. This shouldn't have a place in our country and amongst our people. So this wicked and evil woman that destroyed our country, she still wants George Weah. George Weah, who does not mean well for this country. And in the words of the chairman of George Weah's party, he sleeps with men and women in exchange for jobs. This is not healthy for our country. And why is Joseph Yuma Boyka is so desperate in wanting to become president of Liberia? These people tested power before. They robbed our country. Very corrupt. Now they want to get in power again. Do you think Joseph Boyka means well for Liberia? You're mistaken. They want to come and further steal from our country. Because they're all evil and wicked people that don't mean well for the country. This has got to stop. I'm not a fan of George Weah. I'm not a fan of Boycott or Cummings. But Ellen is doing everything. Ellen has now planted this boy who comes from nowhere now and wants to be president. The son of the late Dr. Harry Moneyman. Somebody who dated this young lady for 18 years, got a child, but has not asked her to marry. You call these serious people? These are just spoilers. Because Ellen and Goya is, she doesn't want boycott. Why it is true that boycott is so desperate that he has surrounded himself now with this murderer, this killer, Prince Johnson, just to take power. This is sad for our country. And somebody needs to step up. We need to ask God for prayer. If God's hand is not in this, Joseph Boyka will never become president of Liberia. If God's hand is not in this, Alexander Cummings, you're wasting your time. So folks, these people really don't love Liberia. It is all about themselves. Greed, deception, lies, and deceit. Welcome to the show. Gentlemen, lady, welcome to the show. Let me begin with Dr. James D. Fisk.
Yes, I want to say thanks ASHFORD for the invitation, for the introduction, quite frankly. And there'll be a lot we have to say about what you've said so far. I just want to welcome our viewers out there, and I hope we can live up to your expectation for another explosive edition of Bridge Bridger today. Thank you.
Dr. Joel Dennis. Unmute your mic, please. Unmute your microphone, Dot.
I say, unless I got my own doctorate degree like George Weah, I got a doctorate degree. Don't confer that on me. It's not earned. It's an unearned privilege. But thank you, man. You said a mouthful tonight, man. I don't know, man. Listen, we got to argue this out tonight, brother. It ain't sounding something not sounding too right. Thank you. Welcome, fellow panelists. I'm happy to be back on this Monday. I had some rest this weekend, man. Resting is and exercising, man. That add a couple of days to the rest of your life every single day. So I take time off, man, and meditate and exercise. And so I'm happy to see everybody back breathing. Still got oxygen in the lungs, and I welcome the debate tonight. Welcome, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Idatu Sade.
Thanks to all of the Liberians, you wonderful panelists. It's once more joy to be in your presence. Thank God that I'm still alive, only by His grace. Thank you.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts.
Good evening, Mr. Garley, and good evening to my fellow panelists. How are you? Hope you all had a wonderful weekend.
Okay.
It's great to be back this Monday evening with you. And yes, you are fiery, ready to roll. Let's get ready to rumble.
Okay, we're going to talk
about, is fired up.
We're going to talk about three things tonight. Now, one, former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf said on many occasions that she has retired from the active politics. But this woman still continued to linger. And within our Liberian politics, what is going on? She's in the mix now with Yombly, Dillon, Cummins, Billity, and the whole 9 yards. That's number one. Number two, Natana McGill was at the weekend in Magibby. And he said in the event when George Weah wins the election, the current ministers and assistant ministers would not come back to their positions because they are too mean and wicked to the people. The people are suffering and they can't help the people. We have an episode of the play. And thirdly, it is a rumor out there now that Henry Costa has taken over the ALP as tenor bearer and will contest the October 10th elections in October. I repeat, Henry Costa, the rumor has it that he will be contesting as tenor bearer of the All Liberian Party. So those are the three things that we are going to talk about tonight. And let us just get straight into this, beginning with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's interference with political actors in Liberian politics after she said that she was no longer part of active politics. And I want to begin with Dr. James T. Fisk.
I mean, the thing is, we need to understand that Ellen, if and when she made that statement, may have also had a condition, because people don't just make statements and say, okay, it's a done deal. So perhaps maybe there was a condition, there was no follow-up to say, what would be those conditions that would resurrect you back into politics? Maybe someone who have asked that question to also put her on the record where she would have said nothing would have, called me back into politics. So if they allow her to leave that door open, then of course you cannot blame her if she decides to get back into politics when she see what is happening right now. And what is happening right now is disturbing on all levels. Number one, you have a country that's not functional. Number two, you have an opposition that's also not functional. And then they are headed for an election. You have to ask yourself, where does Ellen stand in all of these things? Who is Ellen really rooting for in this chess game that she's playing with in conjunction with all of these politicians versus the Liberian people. So it's all of these actors versus the Liberian people, because at the end of the day, long story short, they're not doing anything for the country. The reason why George Weah was elected, because in addition to his popularity, people were despondent with the fact that with all of her accolades, she never really delivered when it came to the key issue. And the key issue for Liberia since the war and perhaps before the war had always been job creation. So people felt despondent, and now Weah came, he didn't deliver for the people. The people are despondent. Then Ellen enters into the picture. In the midst of all of these things, we need to ask ourselves, what does she really want? So the question is not about, oh, well, she said she would enter politics and she did not. Obviously, people never questioned her hard enough to understand whether there were conditions. So we can say that, okay, we question that. Let's understand what Ellen wants.
Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, what does the woman want from us? She sponsored the war in Liberia that killed hundreds of thousands of Liberians. She became president, not once, but twice. She ushered George Weah in based on condition that I will protect Madame Salif and her family. She's still in our blood. What does she want from us? Come in. Unmute your mic, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garley. Great question. What does she want? Well, what I thought she would want is a healthy Liberia, a functioning economy, a great all-around country, like all of the countries she has visited. However, when you start wheeling and dealing in the back, it looks sinister. She hasn't spoken out on any issue that has been plaguing the country. She has not made her voice or her face, bring her face out to say, this is the issue right now. Our people are blah, blah, blah. With all of what we have said, the whole country crying, she doesn't say anything. Now, all of a sudden, we hear she's in the back orchestrating things. That's not how democracy works. When I was driving this morning, after hearing all of these developments over the weekend, what I said was, I guess Ellen is the new electoral college for Liberia. Because you did this, as you stated, in 2017. Now here you are, instead of giving the people the opportunity to have their voices heard as it should be, now you're wheeling and dealing. I think it's unfair to the Liberian people. Thank you.
Dr. Joel Dennis.
Well, I'm gonna take a different approach here. I think what Ellen Johnson Sirleaf does not want is a resurrected dead body perpetrating like he's president or future president. And I can agree with her. Look, the younger Liberians, need to stop acting like Joseph Boyka is president of this country or is going to be president. Liberia has a chaotic future ahead of us. And we need to stop pretending. You and I, we can sit on the internet every day in the comfort of our homes in America. We're safe. You know, we eat 3 times a day, most of us. Some people eat even more. But the Liberian people are not eating regularly. So the situation is dire. We should not underestimate Ellen's power for this country. And we can't underestimate each of our own love for Liberia. Yes, I agree. These old politicians need to be out of politics, but they still have an advisory role to play, which is what Ellen is playing in Liberia today. Joseph Boyka need to go back to the cemetery, wherever Pastor Idatus then brought him from. He needs to go back to that place. Okay, that's where he needs to be. He needs to be out of politics, and I'm ready to see people like the pastor himself take an active role, not this passive role where we just making noise on the internet every day, talking about he got a vision. The man's blind. What vision he got? So I'm happy to see Ellen putting her hands back in it. Maybe it would check out anything small and we'll start getting serious. I'll leave it like that.
Pastor Adi.
You know, I would certainly like the traffic in my brother's sense of emotionalism, but Joseph Boyka is certainly not a dead body, and neither is he from the cemetery.
I got the med death certificate in my pocket right here. You want to see it?
As far as Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's involvement in politics, make no mistake, she's a Liberian, you know, a former president. The Constitution allows her the right to still participate and influence. But the beauty about the whole matter is the fact that the candidate that we are representing happens to be the presumed choice of the Liberian people, consistent with the turnout for his nomination of the vice president. So we're not surprised that there will be opposition to this reality. And make no mistake, the Liberian people will ultimately make a choice. Madam Sirleaf reserves the right to, you know, deal behind the back door, influence as much as she can. At the end of the day, the will of the people will be spoken for the greater good of the country. And make no mistake, those who believe that Ambassador Boyka may not be fit for this to chart the course of our destiny, you'll be shockingly surprised at this reality, which is soon to come in a future not too distant.
Well, I'm going to say this, and you guys can come in to either agree or disagree. Ellen is on a mission here. Ellen wants to protect her legacy, and Ellen is afraid that most of the things that went on in our country, where she and her son looted the country, and you heard Ellen on record saying that she would take responsibility when her son Robert Sirleaf mismanaged millions at the oil company. So Ellen encouraged her other son to enter the race. Ellis comments. Now she got her a former office boy, Moneyma, to get in the race just to be spoilers. Ellen is now calling Yombly, Musa Ability, and Darius Dillon because her ultimate goal here is George Weah winning the second term. So she will spoil it for everybody. The next thing you know, Joseph Boyka will be walking with sticks or he will be in his grave. And then in 2029, that's when she'll say, Elizana Cummings, it is your turn to take a shot at the presidency. But her goal here is to get George Weah to take the second term. With that, he still maintains that he will protect Ellen and her family. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, first thing first, you know, just as a disclaimer, I have to say that I worked in the Ellen regime. I mean, I have had a political position within the regime, and I never joined the UP, but I worked in a strategic position. I would just say that within the government, and I'm one of those who stepped aside when I didn't think that the government was working in the interest of the people. So I just have to put that disclaimer out there. I don't need anybody else typing that, oh, you used to work in the government, so I may as well get in front of that story. Okay, but that being said, you see, Liberian people have a number of false choices, and that's the downside of Western democracy, where people rise to power only because of popularity. When the initial assumption of that kind of arrangement was that those who are choosing, the majority of those who are choosing, they understand what is at stake and they are making decisions based on what is at stake. In the African context, it's only about personality. So then you see George Weah becoming president and Ellen before him. Okay. But if you were despondent with Ellen, 12 years, and then the joblessness in Liberia continued. And what was the agenda at the time? Reconciliation. The reconciliation that was held for 12 years and up until now, they have not been able, Liberia cannot grapple with the fact that you have 17 tribes, including the Congo people, 17. they still, when you hear Congo elect, you hear fire. Okay, and they still see these people as being distinct from the rest of Liberia. So that whole thing about reconciliation was a sham. Another way of saying that we got nothing to offer the Liberian people. 12 years went by, nothing was done. And in those 12 years, Joseph Boakai was vice president. In those 12 years, and maybe not 12 years, but at some point, Mr. Kuhn were also in this government, so to speak. Okay, and I stand to be corrected on the second point. But if you are interested in change, then you can't logically be going after Boakai. Okay, and if you are also interested, if you genuinely have problem with the fact that Ellen did not deliver, then it doesn't make sense that you want Mr. Weah to continue to be president. Because what? We've had 6 years for him to give Liberian people job. Joblessness is still rampant across the country. While joblessness is rampant, he's going to England, and then there's an official picture of world leaders that was invited, and he's not even in the picture. Okay, so it just tells you that because of how Liberia, the representation of Liberia is, the country is almost being relegated to insignificance if it's not already there. Okay, at the end of the day, we cannot say, it's hard, and I continue to say it's hard to determine what this woman wants. I know she does not want a continuation of Boakai because of there's some disagreement between the two of them. And if she wants Cummings, I heard that Cummings is not. There was some kind of friendship between Ellen, and that's rumor now. Some friendship between Ellen and Cummings on account of the fact that he's been this business person and was linked to her banking activities and the rest of it. Okay, so on the basis of that, she may want him, but then of course his hand is not clean if we decide to do an investigation about that. So we have to understand that there's a lot of false choices out there for Liberian people. How would the Liberian people move forward in terms of who to select? It's becoming more complicated by the day, and adding Ellen into the mix hasn't made things any better. In fact, it's made it even worse because the Yombli Kanga has been in this legislature that is taking more money annually than the U.S. Congress. There's a hotbed of corruption. So what is the difference? What is the significance other than this false choice that Liberians have to deal with? That's what I'll continue to say.
Mrs. Lucky Brooks Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garley. Again, I think it's sad because while she is the mother of the country and history maker, she does have a stake in this country and the well-being. But my thing is, why is it that we don't hear from her, haven't heard from her to show? Because when you have interest in something, whenever you see chaos, maybe she speaks to them in the back, but I still think we haven't. Maybe I'm not linked to her account on Twitter because I do hear she's on Twitter. So we don't hear what she says. Maybe she does it in that medium, but it's this is an open secret though. Not just Ellen, all of those mean bad guys in our country, they gather at night, and that's the scary part. Nicodemously, when everyone is asleep, they are driving here, there, and discussing the well-being of our country. But if we are going through all these efforts to do voter registration, all of the money that's being spent by international partners, and then we have one person that's gonna, want to call the shots, that's not fair to our people. I think she needs to lay low.
Joel Dennis, do we see just a few people making decision on October the 10th at And then as Ellen says to the table, Dylan, take your 1 million. Yombly, take your 2 million. You know, Cummings, 2029 for you. Jeremiah Kuhn, take your 3-4 and come and announce that we are suspending our campaign for the sake of peace. Let us just give it to George Weah. Do you see that happening?
No, I don't know. I don't see that happening. I mean, for me to see that happening will be to admit that all the Liberian elections so far has been fraudulent. Because if we are saying here that people are registering to vote, people will make their own minds up. Unless you're trying to tell me Ellen, full of witchcraft, that she can go inside people's house and change their mind to vote, then I would believe that. But I mean, I think the bigger question that
brother, people registered to vote in 2017, and Bernard Ure from Carisburg, he only had 2 votes in Carisburg.
His girlfriend, his boyfriend.
That's right.
So no, listen. We on this side in America, and I keep saying this, we have the privilege of being inside of our temperature control room, eating 3 times a day. So we can make decisions, even though we're not inside of this situation. But imagine for a second, my brother, when you're in Liberia, you wake up in the morning, you look at your child, your 2-year-old daughter, crying for food to eat. And you, as a man, can't provide food for that child to eat. You think you're really worrying about, all these things that me and you sit here and worry about? The bread and butter issues that people are worrying about, people do want change in this country. So Ellen by herself cannot influence an entire generation like that to change their minds on who they're going to vote for. And I think the bigger question that we have to ask here today is, we're changing the focus on Ellen, but who's going to prosecute George Weah, Samuel Twe, Jefferson Koji? Who's prosecuting these people? If Pastor Idatus is saying that his people are going to come in, they're going to be worried about going back to 16 years ago to prosecute Ellen Johnson when you have George Weah building 14 houses in Liberia today, 14 when he took power. Jefferson Koji got a house in Cinco. He was living in a zinc house. He got a big house in Cinco now. You're going back to Ellen. You're really worried about Ellen from 15 years ago when George Weah refused to prosecute her. That's what you're sitting here worried about. So my real question to you, Ashford, tonight is this show. How much did the CDC pay you for this show to come talk about Ellen here? Because it seems like a big distraction to me. Ellen is not the issue here. Ellen is inconsequential in this next election. She is very inconsequential. So I'll leave it at that.
George Weah, who according to Molba Molu sleeps with men and women in exchange for jobs.
That's gossip, man. That's gossip.
Listen, I said the man himself said I got to the chairman himself. Okay, George Weah ain't got money to pay me. I worked 12 hours before coming to the show tonight. Okay, so he ain't got money to pay me. This guy
He got mad to pay.
He got mad. He got it for the other people. Because I would not take money to compromise the integrity of the platform and me. That's why we work and work hard. So George Weah has it for the other people. I still maintain that George Weah doesn't mean well for this country, and he will go down as the worst thing that ever happened to this country.
Okay.
Back to base. Idatus added, Joseph Yuma Boyka is from Lofa County. Jeremiah Cohn is from Nimba. Are you surprised that Lofa and Nimba, the voting machine having problem every day, a machine just breaking down? Lofa is going to be a battlefield. Nimba is also going to be a battlefield. That makes it hard for your ticket. Come in, sir.
Actually, certainly in African elections, it's usually difficult to defeat the incumbent because the incumbent manages the elections commissions, and he gives money for them to function and buy things that ought to be used to facilitate the voting process. But we are at a very critical juncture. So all of these discrepancies that we are already seeing with respect to not fully funding the NEC and or the machines are breaking down, to the fact that there are 2 individuals of the CDC who have been exposed in helping to manipulate the BVR registration. So we are not unmindful of these realities. But make no mistake, Liberia is at a very crucial juncture, and any attempt to steal these elections may not augur well for the stability of our country. The Liberian people are very clear. The youth who are participating in these elections, per the research done by the Swedish company, have stated that those who will be deciding these elections will be between the ages of 33 to 40 some more years old. And it's very clear that it is that population that has looked at Joseph Boyka and called him Rescue One. Rescue One because they believe in his vision. And, if anyone attempting to believe otherwise will be making a mistake. It is certainly a false mischaracterization that we have false choices in the race. Certainly not, because the Liberian people understand that Mr. Boyka's vision is not false. And by the way, Mr. Cummings' mother is Gio, but he's from Sino County. All right, he went to school in Nema, and at the same time, he was able to go to school in Bassa. He speaks 4 different dialects. All right, Bassa, Gio, Minor, Grebo, and Gio. Right. So the fact remains we have a well-rounded VP who is about to support the vision of an incoming president. And if you are very concerned as to whether or not there will be cheating in these elections, the facts are clear. They've started doing it. We're not surprised. The weaponization of militants within the Monrovia City Police, as well as the immigration, are all examples of what potentially may happen. So we understand that we are in for a greater fight to win this incumbent, and until he steals these elections, there's no way he can win. You have a fractured coalition that once supported him. They are in fragmentation. You have the NPP that is now split up between James Bani and Joel Taylor. You also have the MDR of Prince Johnson's party, who has left President Weah. So it's going to be a tough sell. Liberian people are tired, and that is why he's been running as an independent in different counties. The CDC doesn't have the gravitas or the credibility to be elected once more by the Liberian people.
When we come back, we'll begin with the Reverend Idatus Ade. Members of his party met last night, and some of the things that we picked up according to the rumor is that Henry Costa wants to take over as the standard bearer of the ALP, and he will be contesting as one of the presidential candidates come October the 10th. Costa said, you know what? Forget about the senator business. Forget about the VP business. I, too, I'm qualified to run as president because they prophesied on me few years ago that our Costa will be president of Liberia. Don't go away. When we come back, Idatus Ade will begin as we get to our second segment.
Hems vocal Liberia number one vocal Liberia number one, right? Okay.
The phrase, a new sheriff is in town, does not only belong to law enforcement. How about the introduction of Liberia's premier vodka, a quality and customized liquor for all occasions? Try the flavor of your choice. Hems Vodka, Hems Honey, Hems Bitter, and Hems Original Vodka. Hems Vodka has no hangover. That's why they say Papa drink, Mama happy. Hems Vodka is sold in all stores, shops, supermarkets, and entertainment centers in Liberia. For wholesale, contact Hems Vodka at 0777 001114, 0777 000 We can also be reached via social media on Facebook and IG at Hems Vodka or www.hensvodka.com. In the United States, please contact Hems North America Incorporated at 610-543-9289, 484-888-1622, 484-755-8411. Hems Vodka is approved by the U.S. federal government. Hems Vodka brings out the real man in you.
I tell you, in my boy, in my blood, every time.
That's why we're back. And folks, I'm telling you, if you're just joining us, this is ASHFORD GARLEY Live on British Radio Africa. This program comes on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube. Pastor Idatus added. Do you care to comment about this rumor that is out there that Henry Costa would now take over as tenant bearer of the ALP, and he's in fact contesting as a presidential candidate on October the 10th?
Well, Ashford, this is certainly breaking news to me. I am certainly not aware of Henry Costa taking over the ALP as the political leader. At this point in time, we're certainly aware that.
Are you aware that? Do you also what do you know about your members of your party meeting last night?
Well, I'm certainly aware of the
men of the gospel. How do you know?
Let me respond. I am certainly aware of members of my party meeting last night. I'm certainly in possession of the communication of that meeting, and that meeting had nothing to do with whether or not Henry Costa will be the leader of the party. Once again, that's news to me, has been broken by this platform, and I certainly, I don't know where you got your source from, but that's different from what I know.
Okay. Again, Henry Costa is qualified as anybody on the ticket to run as.
I'm not questioning his qualification. I'm just responding to your news.
What do you make of Henry Costa getting into the race?
Well, that will be the decision of Mr. Costa. When he decides that, you will have my commentary. Until then, I'm not aware of Henry Costa taking over the ALP leadership or contesting for these elections.
But you certainly support your party because of party party mandate. If Costa do, or when he decides to take over as tenant bearer, though right now you support boycott, but according to your party mandate, you are going to support Henry Costa for president, aren't you?
Well, Ashford, I support Joseph Human Boyka.
For now, you support Joseph Human Boyka, and you are a member of the ALP. Should Henry Costa say, you know what, I'm running and I will become the tenant bearer of the ALP, will you leave ALP and still go to support Joseph Boyka?
I repeat, I support Joseph Human Boyka.
The pastor got no
until these elections are over. I support Joseph Human Boyka until these elections are over. It couldn't get any clearer, my brother.
Dr. Fisk?
The thing is, the nature of politics and the nature of electoral politics is that everyone has the right to make decisions about who they want to vote for or who they support. And because of that, I respect Reverend Addy's statement that he's rooting for Joseph Boyka. Now let's talk about Costa, and let's talk about for a second the speculation that Mr. Costa wants to be president of Liberia. People have to ask themselves what did George Weah bring to the table when he was running to be president. The fact that he supported Liberian soccer during the war, that was about it. There was nothing else George Weah brought to Liberia. Okay, and I think Costa is equating himself to George Weah because he's looking at it purely from the standpoint of celebrity. Okay, when Mr. Costa gets on the air, a lot of people listen to the show, and because of how he speaks and the rest of it. But he needs to understand whether that's going to transfer into votes, especially from a population of people who continue to remain despondent. And then, of course, let us talk about Mr. Joseph Boyka, even though that's not a segment that we want. Mr. Boyka talked about some kind, he has an acronym. Remy can help me understand. Help me with the acronym. Arrest.
Agriculture, road, education, sanitation, and tourism.
Exactly. So arrest. The first thing he talked about is agriculture. I saw that stuff. I said, but Liberia is already an agriculture nation. People grow food a lot in the country. So right there, he missed the boat just the same way CDC talking about pro-poor. Liberia not pro-poor. Liberia is rich. Liberia is mismanaged. So it's not poor. So arrest, you talk about agriculture. People already farming. What they don't have are factories to be able to harness what is being farmed. And factories create jobs. Okay, so you have one farmer making hectares of rice. But if you had a factory that'll be able to now transform those things and put them in bags, you can employ 50, 100 people in those factories who will put those rice in a bag and sell it. So if you're not doing something that will be able to bring in money, how do you talk about tourism? How do you talk about roads? How do you talk about anything? Where you getting the money from? You going back to go beg America with a legislature that is taking more money than America? You think the $60 million that Liberian people giving by their hard work to support Liberia is what you're going to use to build roads, to build tourism, to build education? No, you don't have an agenda to create jobs. It starts from job creation. I was just looking on the internet when Mr. Kiwon Gonglo is lamenting the fact that there's going to be an increase of currency between the U.S. and Liberian dollar, and it's going to increase the hardship. No, it's not what is increasing the hardship. The hardship is increasing because there are no jobs. With jobs, you're going to have a boost to the economy. Okay, when Liberia economy was being compared to that of Japan, it was because of the output. That's what factories give you, output. Okay, so and none of these guys are talking about it. It's just in recent times I've seen a shift in what Cummings is now presenting forward as being the main thrust of his agenda, and now he's talking more about jobs because that's where the crux of the issue is as far as Liberia is concerned. And this whole thing about we need to just Ellie is just brokering peace, and Mr. Costa wants to run for president. We have had a placeholder for the last 6 years. And I'm saying, okay, if we have to replace Mr. Weah, let's replace Mr. Weah with someone who has a serious agenda. The arrest agenda is not a serious agenda. That's why I've referred to this as fake. We have false choices. We need people who understand the problem and who have agenda to fix it at the root cause. The root cause of the problem in Liberia is lack of jobs.
And Joel, after you want to go to the telephone line, the number to call just in case you want to be a part of this conversation is 267-248-5295. I think that was a cut-off guy. He does not know that with the length of time we have been in the business, anything that goes on, we're happy that will come to tell us. Liberian people can talk. So he party met last night. There were a lot of things said, and I'm told that was not even happy in our meeting last night. But anyway, we'll leave it as that, my man. Of course, I was
never in a meeting last night, so you can throw shade all you want. I have made it very clear. I support Joseph Boyka. So whatever fire that you're trying to draw, I'm not entering it with you. I support Joseph Boyka, and that's where I stand.
Last night, didn't you say that?
Yes, my party did meet.
That was a meeting. Jeez.
Listen. The party meets all the time, and that rumor that you were trying to traffic in is not holding water.
Okay.
And that is why Joel said, "Listen, we gotta focus on substance. The show can be about rumor."
Okay.
All night.
Joel, please come in.
But yeah, somebody made a comment saying the pastor can lie.
But they have not said what the pastor is lying about, because the pastor cannot. The pastor. What? All right. So what's the lie? Has the pastor said?
Well, pastor. Okay, pastor. Okay. Let's look at.
Let them tell me the lie this pastor has said now on the show. What is the lie?
Let's look at the substance. Even if we just debate the merit that there is a rumor that Henry Costa is running for president. That's just a rumor, and I think that's what we are alluding at, because he does have that hunger and that propensity to want to be president or vice president. Where would you stand if he becomes the standard bearer of your party? Now, before
he's not loyal. He just told you he will support Henry.
He will support Joseph Boyka. Yes,
he just added the pastor is not loyal. He told you that tonight.
He will support Joseph Boyka. I agree. He has become the mouthpiece of Joseph Boyka, and I feel the same with you. When Michael Jordan played basketball, no matter which team he went to, I was a member of that team. Even when the man started playing baseball, I started watching baseball. Okay, so I understand you are a Joseph Boyka man. You're not loyal to no party.
Even though he was with the ALP, but all of a sudden now he's supporting Joseph Boyka. Even the ALP is saying, "Listen, what Joseph Boyka did, we didn't like it. We are stepping away to see if we can come up with a candidate." He doesn't say you're on your own. I will still support Joseph Boyka. In essence, that's what he's saying tonight.
Yes. Let me make one more comment.
You
It's like
know,
what
the
kind of
last time I checked, it was Ashford who actually encouraged me to join the ALP.
That one not
So
true.
that's a founding member of the ALP.
Listen, and I am not disputing the fact, okay? I encourage you to join the ALP, and I said to the leader of the ALP, I said, your decision to bring Prince Johnson to talk to your party, I will not be a member of this party because Prince Johnson killed my father. He killed all my uncles and aunts. My children don't have grandparents today because of your association with Prince Johnson. Because of that, I'm leaving the ALP, and I was straight about it. That's why I can't be part of ALP. So you must state that too. Go ahead.
That man is taking a principle stand. You, Pastor Ali, I don't know what kind of stand you on because you just saying wherever Joseph Boyka go, that way you go. Even to the graveyard, you following the man there.
Yeah.
So I don't understand.
Can I come in? You know, again, we all have our conviction, right? Costa and Pastor Ida were all supporting boycott. Now it's just like we all on this team right now. So if say Ashford offends one of you, you cut off from all of us. Do you cut off?
Are you
That's my
asking
question.
Idatus, right?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you guys because you're trying to
Asking
put
you.
on
What's the question? What's the question?
Idatus in a situation that he can't handle.
No, I mean, I can certainly handle it. They are trying to draw a false narrative
No, I don't think
I'm
so.
able to defend myself.
No, Pastor Adi, if the party is built, if your party is built around principles, not personality, that means anybody that is in that is the standard bearer of that party is going to follow the party principles, not the personality. So if your party is built around that, you can change the leadership and still support the party. That is what we're asking you here. So is the ALP not a party built on principles?
Your question assumes that the ALP has left or openly or publicly stated that they are no longer supporting Joseph Boyka. So you have positioned it hypothetically. Let me finish. Let me finish, sir.
I'm not assuming it's a theoretical question. I'm not assuming anything.
It is an absolute assumption. The party is still in dialogue with the Unity Party. No official statement has come up to the public. You guys are making the assumption and want to make your assumption fact based on hypothetical. You are being politically false in your narrative with an assumption that does not aggregate to the truth. And now you're saying I don't have principles when in fact I do have principles.
I've never said that.
The principle I have is the fact that I stand for the vision that Mr. Boyka is promoting. My political leader has told us publicly that he's not running to be president. He's not interested in being the vice president. So the hypothetical you are creating is a false equivocation to make it seem as though it's a principal question, but it's highfalutin with falsehoods.
It will become public soon.
My political leader is not running. My political leader is not running. He's not interested in the presidency. He's no longer interested in the vice presidency. But you are making the assumption that he's running, and because I support Mr. Boyka, therefore I'm on principle.
In other words,
that's a false conclusion. That is a faulty conclusion.
In other words, what the pastor is trying to say here is the ALP is not a party, and most of the political parties in Liberia are not.
I didn't say that. ALP still remains a vibrant party.
Susu clubs, they are not party because they don't stand for anything. They go with the wind. In essence, that's what he's trying to say. With that said, I think we should go to the telephone line. The number to call is 267-248-5295. We have a call on the line. Hello, caller. Tell us your name.
How you doing, Mr. Garley? This is Elvis calling from Minnesota.
Welcome to the show. Make your point, please.
And hello to your panelists. I want to say quickly to Joel. I think, Joel, you're being naive if you think that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is not influential in our politics. She's very influential. And I think that whole situation, we should ask that, Pastor Adi, what is it that Ellen knows about JMB that she's so adamant against him being president of our country? And I think even to you, that Dr. Pastor Adi, I think you're being a bit insensitive with this whole supporting of the vice presidential pick of JMB, because like Mr. Garley said, for some of us who are from a specific tribe and from a specific county in Liberia, if Prince Johnson get anywhere close to the presidency, I can guarantee you there will be a big reaction, and it will not be a pleasant reaction from a specific people and from a specific country in that country. And lastly, before I go, I want to say to Dr. Fix, you always talk about factory, the government needs to build factory. I don't know. We live in America. I don't know any factory that the American government owns that people are employed to. Most factories are built, almost all factories are built by private individuals, for profit, corporation. So if you give the government opportunity to build factories, the same corruption will creep into that factory. The money and the profits will go back into the government official pockets. So I think somebody like you, perhaps who have the means, should go there and build your own private factory and employ, Liberians to work in there and make money for yourself and provide jobs for people. But I don't think it's the government, position to build factories and hire, people. The government is already overbloated as it is. And then you advocating for them to open factories just to put more, employees on the wage bill of the government. I think that would be an overkill. I want to leave it there. Thank you for taking my call, Mr. God.
Okay, thank you. Again, if you still want to be a part of that
Can,
conversation,
can I quickly
Let me
respond
say-
to myself?
this 267-248-95.
Ashford,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Doc.
Elvis is not allowed to call no
Can I
more.
quickly respond to Mr. Elvis?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, fine. So, Mr. Elvis, have you also known that the U.S. government consistently incentivize U.S. farmers in this country with subsidies? Do you know that, or don't you? Is it causing corruption in the U.S. government? So, in a way, it's as a back channel way of making sure that agriculture and factories are sustained in this country. So, make no mistake that you will sit down and say, "Oh, we have a government that is only about ministries." Okay, you want to make sure that you have a government that has the capacity to create jobs, because it's not about what is written on paper, it's what you do to address the current concerns that are specific to your country. That's why you have government, that's why you have innovation. That's why the Bible say, that's why the Bible say, in the absence of vision, nation perish, because you don't have vision. You see that there are no jobs, and you say, oh well, once upon a time on paper it said that government can create. No, government can create factory. Government can create factories, because why? The U.S. government is creating factories because it incentivizes U.S. farmers. Go and check that out. You will see that the U.S. farmers are surviving because every day the U.S. government is pumping huge amount of money into those farmers and the factories to keep them alive. So stop talking that stuff and stop finding excuse for this government that has done nothing for the people. The people need jobs. How are you going to fix job? Massive job employment. How are you going to do it? By packing people in ministries? Don't you know that early once upon a time they downsized and right sizing as a way of trying to cut the number of people? So what are you going to do? The Zogos that over there that got no jobs, how are you going to do it? Don't you know that when you put them in factories, what's going to happen is that you're going to take them off the streets? Don't you know it addresses security sector reform concerns?
Thank you, Doc.
You don't have the vision. Let's not.
So let me respond to some things.
Please.
No, thank you, Doc. I will bring in Joel, then you can respond, because I think Joel Elvis called all of you guys out. Come in, Joel.
I like Elvis, but Elvis not allowed to call no more. Let me tell you right now.
He's not allowed.
That's the democracy.
He's not allowed to call him a black Elvis from the day. But I would agree with Elvis on
You can't do that. You can't do that, Joel. Democracy, man.
No, I'm joking. But I myself, I'm with Elvis. Elvis fine. I'm naive with Ellen. As a young man who have some sort of future in Liberia, I'm not afraid of Ellen, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. Sure, she has some influence, but with the right opposition party, Ellen is irrelevant. But let me go back to this, because we have this conversation every night about factory business in Liberia. And I'm with Elvis on this one. I agree that government does not create factories. Government cannot get in the private sector business like that, because then if they're creating factories, then they become a big competitor to the private sector people who want to open up a business. And in any democracy, you cannot compete with a government entity. So the government can create the infrastructure, the roads, the buildings, these things, and create subsidies for private industries to go into building factories in Liberia. But look at Liberia, for example. The country does not have 24-hour electricity. Why would somebody like me, who say I'm a businessman, take my money. Let's say I'm investing $10 million a day. Why would I pass Ghana, Guinea, Sierra Leone, all these places that have roads, have electric, have the human resources, the capacity where I don't have to go in and train people, spend millions of dollars training people how to, do basic things. Why would I go to Liberia? Other than emotional reasons.
But Joel, the guy Lone Star, the cell phone company, how does he operate?
Lone Star is not a factory. Lone Star is a customer service business. They're not creating nothing. It's a customer service business.
They got so factories in Liberia that are functioning. They got factories in Liberia that are functioning. So if you have
name the factory for me.
If you have the vision, if you are
name the factory that's functioning,
providing jobs, you will make.
ASHFORD, name the factory for me that's functioning in Liberia. Name the factory. Don't tell me Lone Star, because Lone Star is one of those business like water. You need
let me come in to answer Joel's question. Let me come in to answer Joel's question. Hold on, no. You asked a question. Let me answer.
I didn't finish.
No, you said government is not involving public sector job creation.
Hold on. Let me finish, though. I beg you, my brother. Let me finish.
Maybe no. You said I gotta answer that, and then we can move forward.
That fix. Hold your peace. Let he lands, and then you can come in. Come in. Okay. Joel.
In Liberia, the government is the biggest employer today. In Liberia, is the biggest employer. And this is what I would like for him to respond to. If I open my private soap factory and the government come open another soap factory next to me, do you think I will have the ability to compete with the government? Answer that question, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and I'll answer two questions because you raised two issues. On my recent visit to Africa, I saw a number of bus lines that are being established in some countries, and those bus lines are owned by government. Okay, and you have private buses running alongside those things, electric bus lines. Okay, I think Nigeria is trying to establish the same thing that's owned by the federal government. Where you got that whole idea from? The government cannot get involved in the public sector job creation. Where really coming from? What kind of theory you're reading?
It's a fact.
No, I can't. Is it Nietzsche?
It's a fact.
Is it Nietzsche? Is it Karl Marx? What is it?
It's a fact.
I've just told you.
The government can barely run the passport.
When you talk, I listen, right? You talk, I listen, right?
Please, Joel, please.
You talk, I listen. I just told you I came from a tour of African countries, and what I saw is those electric bus system. It's not a private thing. It's owned by government. Okay? And what do you have alongside them? You have buses. You have people with private buses running. Has it stopped the private buses from running? No. You look at Liberia. Liberia has a population of 5 million people. So if you went and open your soap factory and the government has decided that it needs to create more jobs, so it gets into public sector job creation, instead of like in Nigeria where they have the electric train, it's owned by government. It's not owned by private businesses. Okay, you say instead of doing that, I will open my soap factory, and government opens the soap factory. You have a market of 5 million people to sell to, and you are trying to convince everybody who's watching you that no one is going to buy your soap because government is open factory too. It doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that you have a country that is complaining that they are poor. You have a country that is complaining that the currency is low. You have if you open factories in the country, you can now start to project to say in the next 5 years, Liberia is going to have an annual budget of $1 trillion. You can't make that kind of projection right now. Why? Because every time you have to go on your knees begging. What country on this green earth is going to give Liberia $5 billion? No country. Okay. But through providing job opportunities for her own people.
Thank you, Dr. Face.
Okay.
Let me say.
Thank you.
Hold on.
Let me respond to what he said. I'm sorry. That's a false equivalence. You said here you went to a country and you saw buses. New York City is run by the state government. That's buses. Factory is something different. This is somebody creating something. Having a bus, that's not a factory. That is not a factory, sir. When you talk about factory, let's talk about the money to create a factory. Everything you need to set up that factory. The network.
How much do you need to do it? Hold on. How much do you need?
Hold on.
Let's talk about the money. How much do you need?
Hold on. You need a lot of money.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
It depends on what you define as a lot of money. That's not true. You've not done your homework.
Tell me today.
Not true.
Tell me what factory you want to create in Liberia that will create jobs that don't cost money. Tell me the
factory. Can I answer his question?
Yeah, tell me what factory you are creating jobs in Liberia that will not cost money. Yeah, tell me.
Okay, so the first thing we have to understand how much money, because it says so much money. What we're talking about in terms of so much money, I can tell you, let's start with what is most relevant for Liberia. Let's talk about rice factory, for instance. Let's talk about a rice mill. Have you investigated how much a big rice mill is going to cost?
Yeah,
have you ever done that research?
Tell me.
No, have you ever done it? No, when you say no,
tell me. You tell me.
So a big rice mill will cost anywhere between $20,000 to $50,000 US. How much? Yes, $20,000 to $50,000 US. And you laughing now because you have not done the research. I have done the research. How much does it cost to build a warehouse that's equivalent to the size of Amazon? How much will it cost? Will it cost $1 million? No. How much are we going to get in return in terms of, number one, servicing the Liberian population, where you're not getting rice from China and India? How much is it going to cost in terms of boosting the Liberian currency? How much is it going to cost in terms of trying to create job opportunity at the micro level? Because now you are flooding the Liberian market with Liberian rice.
And we'll leave it at that, Dr. Fish. Thank you so much. I will bring in Pastor Adi, then we'll go to our last segment. Come in, Pastor Adi.
There's one thing I truly would wish Dr. Fish should understand. Government creates the atmosphere for job creation.
Amen.
And that is why under Ellen, you had all of these concessions agreements signed. Government is not involving unless you want to be a communist country. But the essence in the democratic, laissez-faire society, the government is responsible to create the atmosphere and attract investors. And that is why in Liberia you have the NIC, the National Investment Commission, right? Responsible to be able to go and bring in investors and create the environment through which they can invest, and job creation comes aboard. Let me also remind you, Dr. Fisk, that when it comes to agriculture, as you referenced, the Honorable Joseph Boyka's vision stating that it is not a plan. Currently in Liberia, you're doing subsistence, existence farming. People plant the food they eat for their survival. And through that vision, we'll be doing what you call mechanized farming, such as the production of rice, so that Liberians can be able to feed themselves through the sufficiency of rice. As a matter of fact, in Africa, in 2010, 40% of Africa's land is dedicated to agriculture. And the USDA report suggests that through agriculture, you reduce poverty, you increase employment, among several other benefits. So make no mistake, I understand your passion for factory and the need for us to open one. But let's be very clear, government is responsible in a more democratic society that is capitalistic in nature for creating the atmosphere for investment. And that is why we're often asking this government to be able to create the atmosphere outside of what the factories, I mean, not the factories, but the concessions that Ellen brought in. What have they brought in to be able to make a difference for the people of Liberia? So make no mistake, your factory idea is a very good idea, but like Joel said, it's people like us who need to go back home into Liberia and invest in creating jobs. And on a very peaceful, secure, economic atmosphere that the government creates.
Well,
and Joseph Boyka looks forward to doing that. And Ashford, let me just say one thing to you very carefully, because there's a tendency for us to say, oh, Prince Johnson killed everybody. Almost everyone in Liberia that has a family member was a victim of that war. Nobody here on this platform supports Prince Johnson or any warlord for the atrocities committed against the Liberian people. So let's be very clear about that. Our country is a victim of warring parties that became political parties. And since then, we have been voting for them under the very auspices of the international community that created the CPA that allowed them to participate and yet remains functional in our elections today. Thirdly and finally, Jeremiah Kuhn is not Prince Johnson. So this false association that we keep making, if that is the reality, then Ellen Johnson surely would not have been our president. George Weah would not have been our president. So make no mistake, the people of Nimba consistently elects him as their leader. So he is not Jeremiah Kuhn. Jeremiah Kuhn is not indicted. So this false political narrative of association, it doesn't work.
You mentioned that I introduced you to ALP, and I said the reason why I left ALP. I would never, ever in my life support Prince Johnson. That's why I left ALP when Benana Ure gave Prince Johnson $60,000 and they went to Ghana to beg Prince Johnson to be on his party. I said to him, Benana, I don't want to ever be part of this association because this man killed my father. He killed all
which is understandable.
And of course, my children don't have grandparents. With that, I will never do that. That's why I don't support ALP, and that's why I am not part of any political party. Dr. Fix, you're saying something.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, Reverend Ade said something that I wanted to respond to. And let me respond to it like this. The essence of democracy, the essence of government is to be innovative in the interest of the people. So if you have a system of government that is running that has joblessness all over the place, and you try to say, okay, let's establish NIC. And the best that's happening is that you have extractive industries that are coming into Liberia. Okay, all they are coming for are the natural resources. They are not coming in to say, okay, let's open factories that will be able to create job employment for these African people. Or let's create some kind of factory that will do jerseys from, or some soap factory or something. They're not interested in those things. What does the government do? Continue to sit on the butt and do nothing for the interests of the people? Who told you communism is when the government tried to get involved in trying to create massive job employment? That's not communism. Communism is like, people are going out and government is apportioning wealth. In other words, wealth has been created and is apportioned on the basis of almost like an equality system. Meanwhile, everyone is not participating as equally. That's communism. Okay, so let's not misdefine the word. And let's understand that the reason why one country functions more than the other is because they think out of the box. The reason why Rwanda is successful today, because Paul Kagame was able to think out of the box and create new policies that he knows will work in the interest that's more robust. That's leadership. Okay, so if you tell me that some artificial book that people reading in the air that say you can't do this, no. If I were president, I would do things. I'll be able to create jobs for my people, massive job employment. Not just sit on my butt and say, oh, well, there's some kind of law that says government can't do this. No, government can do anything government wants to do in the interest of the people.
Thank you, Dr. Fisk. We're squeezing the last caller and then we'll take our last segment. Hello, caller.
Yeah, Ashwa, how you doing? How you doing, the British family?
We're good. Welcome to the show.
This is Bud Dino calling from the state of Iowa to this exhibit. The city in Iowa called Cedar Rapids. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when we follow our war-torn then country Liberia, we will bleed in our hearts with water and blood all the time. We should forget about a senseless war all of us fought in Liberia. Everybody, not only one tribe, all the 16 tribes in Liberia fought that 30th war. We killed one another with no.
Ashford may have dropped off the call by accident.
This is particularly to the ANC's members. What would be the question if Prince Johnson have opened his arm to you people and say you're welcome? Or our 2 or 3 presidents down to the internal, how they call it, internal government of the Republic of Liberia. Prince Johnson helped to organize the interim government of Liberia when he turned over the National Bank and food to Amos Sawyer. Nobody talking about it. In 7 days, 7 political giants from the ANC met Jeremiah Kuhn met with Prince Johnson, gave Prince Johnson money. Now, Prince Johnson is bad. It is the same Prince Johnson who fought, who killed. My family was killed too, right in front of my eye. But Prince Johnson helped Ellen Johnson Sirleaf with 6.7 million voters in Nima County.
Thank you, sir.
He helped them. Every president, he helped George Weah. Now, Buckeye not come there. But Prince Johnson will always be Prince Johnson. Prince Johnson, Jeremiah Kuhn is not Prince Johnson. ASHFORD GARLEY is not Prince Johnson. Redding is not Prince Johnson. Says is not Prince Johnson. She has her name. So all of those things, you don't put these things aside.
Thank you, Mr.
Behind
Dino.
us and go forward. Now to the end. Where is Yombly today? Where is Alexander coming today? Alexander coming and Yombly zero. No balance, no equation. Pandora box open. There goes my knowledge according to a cover case.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. You gotta stop those things, man, my people.
Yeah, and we said that from the get-go. Until the opposition can come together, we're afraid that this useless ball will come by again. With that said, folks, let us segue into our last and final segment. Lieutenant McGill is in the news again. He was in Margibi at the weekend, and he said that the current ministers and assistant ministers in the government are so wicked to the people. In fact, they don't give back to the people. And if or when George Weah wins again, they will be fired. They will not be in government. He can promise them that. So let us take a listen, and then we can weigh in before we go home tonight.
But let me tell you one thing. Most of the people in the government right now, some of them are very mean. They live in community, but I can guarantee you, when President Weah wins, majority of those in the government will not go back in the government. When President Weah wins, majority of those in the government will not go back in the government because they are very mean. They live in a community, they cannot give up to the people. And let the people believe the president. And Mr. President, you are listening to us. We are the masses. We are the downtrodden people. I was in the government before. Individuals who don't care for ourselves, don't keep them in your cabinet. Because those people, they're not good. When you give people a job, and the job is not your responsibility to do everything. This is the time. We know you can't change that now. Mr. President, you can't change that now. But my job.
This clown who was accused for criminality was sanctioned. He's still around. I don't blame him because he got people that Prince Johnson is around. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says that, but for your morality, man. Come on. Is this a serious man? We listen to him. Now he's running to be senator. And because of the low money he has, he's able to bring people, to pay people to come and listen to his nonsense. Dr. Fisk?
Yeah, education is extremely important because when you are very educated, you have perspective when you say things to people. Okay, and education doesn't mean just walking through the school; it's allowing the school to walk through you. In history, you have a period in history called the Renaissance period. The Renaissance was the time that the notion that education, religious education, was the sole preserve of the Catholic and the Catholic Church was deconstructed by people like Martin Luther. And then they saw the danger and then made access to the Bible easy for everybody. I say this to say, CDC, all he said is that the seditionists believe in Reaganomics, trigger down economics. In other words, we steal the wealth, hold the wealth, and then you'll come and beg me. Okay, is that how a government is supposed to function, for God in heaven's sake? All he has just done publicly is to justify theft that they've been doing. Okay, and it's true. When I visited Liberia not too long ago, okay, Buffer Chimba, his fence can create quota road for the dusty road that just lay on the side of his home. But this was the guy who was acting like he was champion for the Liberian people. These guys are ridiculous. These guys are sick. Okay, and worst of all, mind you, now he never talked about the fact that the Senate, they are taking more money. The legislature, as an institution, is taking more money than in the United States of America, a country that has 300 million people. Their lawmaker take less money than you in Liberia, with a country of 5 million, and you're not producing anything. He didn't talk about that. But he talked about the fact he go on air and try to justify public theft and say, oh, let's create a system, patrimonial system. In other words, you will be there, and then people line up to come and take your largesse, even if it was inappropriately gained. And like I said, once upon a time, people have used the statues of Liberia that's supporting the nation as a cover for theft, and that has nothing to do about. Because one of the reasons we're talking about, because it started to creep into the system, it became mainland politics under the likes of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, when people like Edwin Snow was speaker. So these people don't mean any good for the country. None of them. And I continue to speak about the false choices that Liberians have to face with because of these kinds of things that Mr. former presidential affairs minister have just come out glaring to say in the glory of his ignorance.
Okay, Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, please unmute your mic.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Garley. This is the same gentleman that at another speech or place in somewhere in Nimba or Lofa, where he said, we steal money, but at least we keep it here. So these people have no integrity. They're just going through the motions and, fooling our people, because the people themselves are just going by, the name recognition, Miguel, when he was in the office, I heard someone reference him, he would give to his people and give to his people and give to these people and kept them. But what are you doing? Just like keeping them comfortable, so they can remember me. So they're just using the people for their own personal gain. And by evidence of what he just said, someone sent, a country, your very highest donor sanction you and give evidence of why and what, and you still walk around with your head up and your chest up and don't have any shame. Our country has a story that the world, I even watched an interview this morning with Alexander Cummings from Nigeria, and they're very well aware of all of the issues in our country. It's sad.
Thank you. Joel?
Listen, I think one thing we have to understand when we see these politicians talking like this, look, politics is about self-interest. It's about survival. It's about self-preservation. So we in the opposition, because I'm not part of CDC, I'm not part of anyone that passed the party. But as a person who wants to see a better Liberia for me to live in, if I am sitting in America, not taking any action to change the mindset of Liberia, then I am creating an environment for people like Nat McGill to thrive. So I want to see a different Liberia. McGill wants a different Liberia than obviously than I expect. But guess what's happening? McGill has more power than you and me. So unless I am on that side making things happen, it's hard to really, it's hard to really criticize this guy. Obviously, when he thinks of democracy, he thinks of democracy as a tool, as a tool to provide welfare for the people. So where he gets a certain amount of money, and from that money, it trickles down to the people. That's that's how he sees democracy. I obviously see democracy as you provide the government, get out of my way, allow me to provide the infrastructure. I can create business for people so they don't become beggars. So this is, and to me, in the future, this type of ideas that we need to start discussing, rather than this person is a countryman, this person is a Congo man. This is an idea that's being paraded around with the pro government. They want to take care of people, rather than create an environment where people can self-sustain on their own and make their own money, make their own way, rather than begging the government for money. So McGill has an idea. His idea is wrong. Yes.
I mean, please.
I hear you, and I hear your point, but we have people here that do that. We can't be on the ground when we have to, maintain ourselves, our daily bread, our families here. So what happened to the people that are giving people, creating avenues to make people self-sufficient? For example, we talk about factories, we talk about businesses, but you give your family or people that you send them stuff to start something, and they're just as corrupt as the leaders. They take your money, they tell you, oh, I'm going to pay the house, but all those kind of things. Have you seen those stories? Oh, I guess it took a break. Back to you, Mr. Garley.
Listen, look, I am aware of these things that are happening, but in the absence of real leadership on the ground in Liberia, there will be a huge vacuum, and people like McGill, Acarius Gray, those people will fill in those vacuum. They will fill in the vacuum. America could not have been a great country if during the Civil War, all the Americans went to China and was just on the internet talking. They would never, when you look at America in the 1700s, Liberia looked the same way. And in fact, I would say nothing much have changed in Liberia today from the time the first slave ship landed in the country.
Okay, let me bring in Pastor Addy.
Well, Ashford, I certainly will not dignify Mr. McGill's comments with a response. Someone that the U.S. government has sanctioned is done Liberian people that he's clean. I don't think it's worthy of any response. Unfortunately, the gullibility of our society is where we are today. And I may agree with Joel that there is a leadership vacuum of intelligent, qualified individuals to be able to contest these elections, but such is the reality we have now. So hence, Mr. McGill is still allowed to contest in these elections and tell the Liberian people, in spite of the overwhelming indictment of his corruption, that he's clean and therefore it's okay to steal government money and share it, because that's what they're doing now. That is the culture that they have created. And that is why we are hoping with the Joseph Boyka vision, all of that will change. And this idea that it's okay to continue to do what you're doing through corruption is fine. Liberians have a choice to make. That's why these elections are highly crucial and very critical. That any decision taken now on October 10 will decide your poverty from your prosperity. And so we're encouraging people to make a very sound choice. For the first time since our Civil War, we have an opportunity to elect two individuals that got no scandal of fighting the war or supporting the war. Joseph Boyka and Jeremiah Cohn. And as much as many folks try to assume that, we're supporting Prince Johnson, nobody's supporting Prince Johnson. We're supporting a ticket of two individuals for the first time.
You can include
no
that,
evidence has been brought.
in your closing statement. Okay, as we close tonight, Letty Brooks Roberts, your closing comment.
Yes, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you to our listening audience. Thank you to the panelists. It was a great conversation. It's unfortunate that our country has been turned into a playground of thieves, and power and all kinds of shenanigans. But we pray that the people who are living this bad situation will get to know that they have to use at some point their power, which is the power to vote. And we pray that the outcome will be in their interest. Thank you so much.
Dr. Fisk.
All I have to say tonight is this. Ellen has been a major power broker in Liberia, and she'll continue to remain a power broker until she dies. So that one, let's just leave that as what it is. Okay. What are her intents? Well, we can understand that she still has this legacy issue. George Weah juxtaposed against Ellen Johnson Sirleaf makes her look like a saint, because this guy isn't running the country like a leader, and he is making himself an international mockery. And long story short, one of the reasons there was despondence with Ellen and there is despondence with George Weah is because Liberians need jobs. The whole issue of reconciliation, that story we talk about it since Judy Bryant time. Massive job employment will make the difference. And how can we implement massive job employment in a situation, in a country where the private sector belongs to foreigners, the Lebanese and the Indians? How do we create massive job employment when international companies, because of international racism and stuff like that, only want to come and get involved in extractive industries? They only want to come for your iron ore and diamond. How does the government innovate? Okay, that's the difference between one government that's successful and another one that has become a failed state. If we can rise to the occasion in terms of our abilities to lead the people, let us leave it to those who have the willingness and the ambition to do so. That's my last word for tonight.
Thank you. Joel Dennis. You're still muted.
Yes, I hope to see a better Liberia anytime soon, but I'm not looking forward to that. I think with this election that Joseph Boyka made, we're going to give George Weah another 6 years. So let's live with that fact. The Liberian election on the day it ends, it will go to the Supreme Court.
So, Joel, who is your political leader?
My political leader, okay, I will tell you this. On the day, let's say December, in the second round election, if I have a choice to be the decider between Alexander Cummings, Joseph Boyka, or in October, I will choose Alexander Cummings.
Because he Congo man, right? And you Congo man too.
Look at
No, you're not.
I would choose ANC because I don't believe Joseph Boyka is alive. I don't believe the man's alive. I believe they have resurrected Joseph Boyka. He's walking around, but he sleeps all the time. I don't believe he can be that leader. I would have loved to have seen ANC and UP unite under one ticket, but it's not possible. So I would go for I would.
But on a serious note, why are they not talking about Tiawan Gonglo? This guy, when he went as labor minister, right? Work permit for foreigners was $400. He said, no, this is not fair. We need Liberians to get more jobs. So they increased it to $1,000 for work permit. He moved on and became Solicitor General, and he made sure that each country attorney
let me tell you something.
Went to law school and have a law degree.
Let me tell you something.
1 minute. This guy traveled for 20 days as government official. He spent 10 days there and came back, and he brought back to the finance ministry $2,500. He said, I did not use this money. I still only 10 days instead of 20 days. This money does not belong to me. It's for the Liberian government. How many people do we have like that? But go ahead, Joel.
Not many. But let me tell you why they will not choose him. And let me tell you something. As I sit here and say, if I was the deciding vote between Joseph Boyka and ANC, I am not a diehard constituent of either of those people. Because let me tell you what would be if on that day, if the rain is coming down heavy, and I got to stay in line to wait to see if Joseph Boycott or Wahini or ANC will win. I will not stay in that ring and vote for none of them. I will go. That's the difference between George Weah people and ANC people. Alex Cummings does not have nobody in Liberia that would say, okay, let me stay in the heat for 5 hours and go vote for that man.
Yeah.
George Weah people got those kind of people. This is the reason why I was saying you have a unity party, you bring these people together and excite the party. But everybody just seems to be on their own now.
And
TDC got 6 more years.
And I strongly maintain that the opposition is not together, and until they can come together, they're wasting their time. And Pastor Ade can spend it all he wants, but I'm telling you, the boycott ticket would not work. The boycott ticket would not work. You can spend it. You say, "Oh, Jeremiah Quinn is his own man," but I'm telling you, the Liberian people, they still remember that character of Prince Johnson. They still remember him, and it will have a great effect on Joseph Boycott during this election. Pastor Ade, please.
Yeah. So, Ashford, all of you can spin it all you want to spin it. But the last time I checked, when he was nominating Jeremiah Combs, Liberians stood in the rain to wait for him to come. So CDC is not the only people to have a diehard. All right. And this whole idea about the Prince Johnson factor, make no mistake that many of you who supported Charles Taylor or the ALP, when you were supporting the ALP, don't forget, Ben Ayu was associated with Charles Taylor. So that's what the last caller said to you, my friend. Let's put the past behind. Because somebody can tell you are supporting someone who was working with Charles Taylor, and Charles Taylor's government killed my people as rebels. So that is why reconciliation is highly important. This wedge of divide that we keep on promoting, all of us as youthful children, I mean, not children, but young people on this platform are all victims of the Civil War. All right. But this one individual that you were painting, nobody's defending him. You guys are trying to politically align him with Mr. Prince Johnson. And just by the mere fact that Mr. Ure was with Charles Taylor, and we have Joseph Boycott that got no scandal of supporting the war, nor Jeremiah Coon. All the other candidates. Alexander Cummings said very carefully that what's his name? President George Weah supported Model. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf supported the war. Make no mistake. So this idea of guilt by association is a faulty politics that we are all preaching because we want to win. Now, I certainly empathize. I lost people in the war. I'm a victim of the war. Do you think I'm going to sit on this platform and re-traumatize myself concerning all of the things that happened during the war? I lost brother who I loved. So make no mistake, we all have our share of the pain, but we are preaching reconciliation. And I'm certainly convinced and convicted that the boycott vision is the best choice for Liberians. Make no mistake, in this utopian world that, oh, we have false choices. No, the reality is you have these choices, and we have to make a choice concerning who leads Liberia for the best vision, experience, and expertise. The factory you're looking for, Dr. Fix, those factories will certainly come in handy when the boycott government create the environment for soap to be produced, for chicken soup to be produced again, as in the Thomas administration. So make no mistake, the vision is clear. Agriculture will bring about jobs. It will create the needed environment for people to be able to go to school, enjoy a best hospital, because this is the reality that we're looking for.
Well, folks, with that said, that's all the time we have to be with you tonight. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. Until then, folks, thank you so much for taking the time of the busy schedule. And as always, we just want to ask Pastor Ade to grace the occasion tonight as we go home.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
And the wise man once said, tough times don't last, tough people do. The heart of a man is never known until he rises, because there's no second chance to make that first impression. Just to buy again, seven people down, I just quite much. Baby, I could play. Second, we are a player. Global, quick on your secret. Basi Yumpo. Africa's media do extraordinary. The giant, he doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. The medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of radio. ASHFORD GARLEY. Have a good night.